Did you ever wonder what a rose petal tastes like? Well, they are edible. Back in episode 35, we chatted with Master Rosarian Debbie Arrington on that topic. And you know something? She's a big fan of serving up rose petals on a plate at mealtime. And Debbie, you actually have conducted a taste test of various rose petals.
Yes, I did. Well, I should note that besides other things, I'm president of the Sacramento Rose Society. And so I am surrounded by a lot of rose experts, and we are always looking for new things to do with roses. My rose taste test came many years ago, back when I was a food editor, and I wrote a story about edible flowers. And so then we did a little taste test of, well, what do flowers taste like and which ones are good and which ones are not. And roses are probably one of the most easiest edible flowers that are around you. Now, the thing about roses is you want to make sure they're not sprayed.
Right.
Because, you don't want to eat anything that you've been using insecticides or pesticides on or anything like that. But when you think about it, roses they're from the same family as a lot of fruits. That's why, you have rose hips on rose bushes that, after the roses are developed and mature, that has rose hip jelly and rose hip tea and all sorts of different things with that. But the flowers also are very tasty. And what we found was that the flowers that had the best fragrance, the strongest scent, tended to have the most taste in the petals also.
Is that a good thing, though? Was it a pleasing flavor?
It was a pleasing flavor. It was like slightly sweet cloves. The roses have a lot of vitamin C in them, so they have kind of that citrusy note that you get from any of your citrus family, where you have that kind of zesty taste on the back of your tongue. You think to yourself like, oh, this is vitamin C. So it's slightly acidic. But the main flavor that you're getting out of most roses is sort of like cloves. It's a little spiciness that you sense on the back of your tongue. What we found also was that the old style roses, like old garden roses, which have a ton of fragrance, they have a lot of flavor also. I also found that the Austin roses, which are big shrub roses and also very, very fragrant, they not only have that slightly sweet, spicy cloveness to them, but if down in the little petals that are towards the center of the flower, they pick up a little bit of the nectar too. And so they're actually sweet, like honey sweet. What's interesting, the ones that we found that had the most flavor tended to be the red colored roses. And the red on them, I think part of that is that those roses tend to have a lot of fragrance also, like your Mr. Lincolns, and other, red roses that have that definite, fragrance to them. But the ones that were just like light colored white rose, they tended not to have much taste to them at all. They kind of were like crunchy lettuce.
So how are they best served?
In salad, fresh. They're better when they're younger. If it's already bloomed and on its last legs and beginning to brown and stuff like that, it's over the top and it tastes sort of like wilted lettuce. But if the rose is fresh, it has that crispness and it has that kind of slightly spicy taste. It's sort of like a mild arugula. It's sort of like in that thing where there's like a little spice and bitterness, but not too bitter. It's kind of like a sharpness to it than bitter. And so salad, it's definitely a salad ingredient. And they also can be used in tea. You can just go ahead and use the petals and put them in some water and let them steep.
Is there any advantage to a single-petaled rose versus a multi-layered rose flower?
A lot of the single-petaled roses have a lot of fragrance. So they do have pretty good flavor also. You can also use them to flavor sorbet or sugars and candy and things like that too.
So I'll call it a complex. You being a rosarian would have the name for a rose flower that has rows and rows of petals. Uh-huh. Are any of those better than others? The younger ones versus the older ones, or the smaller ones? Are they tastier than the larger ones?
Oh, you mean the size of the roses?
Of the petals.
Well, of the petals, size of the petals. The small petals that are towards the center of the flower, those are the ones that are going to pick up a little bit of the nectar from it. So those tend to have the best taste to them. larger petals on the outside. They've been around longer. So they're like the outer, think of it as like a head of lettuce. And the outer leaves of the lettuce, they tend to go limp, and they tend to have the less taste. While the inner leaves of the lettuce, they're in the heart, they seem to have the best crispness and the best taste.
Is there a bitter part to that rose petal, like the point where you yank it away from the flower, that little brace towards the back of the petal? Is that more bitter than the rest of the petal?
No. The bitterness that I found with some of them was they were just older. They, had bloomed for a while and had gotten a little tired.
Since you are a Master Rosarian, Debbie Arrington, and a garden writer and a big-time vegetable gardener, defend the use of a rose bush in a food garden.
Oh, because, a rose bush, it's like a big sign to bees and other beneficial insects that come and get it. There's lots of stuff here.
So it attracts beneficials and pollinators.
It attracts beneficials and pollinators, yeah.
And it's pretty.
And it's free, yeah.
Yeah.
And also the rose is a food plant, so why not? The thing about roses is that you got to think that roses are the favorite thing for deers to eat. Roses are deer candy. Wild roses, out in the forest and stuff, they just go crazy over them. There's a reason why. It's because they taste good, and they like them compared to other things. So that's one of the reasons why they gravitate towards it.
There you go. Roses for your garden. Even if it's a food garden, you're adding another source of food to your backyard cornucopia.
Yes, and if you are seriously looking at the rose plant as a food plant, definitely let your hips develop because the hips are delicious. Roses are from the same family as plums and peaches and things like that. So the hips kind of taste like a tangy apricot flavor. They have that sort of brightness to them. And the rose hips have the most flavor of any part of the plant. And so they make an excellent tea, they make an excellent jelly, and they're just pretty, too.
So I guess the way to develop rose hips is to keep your shears away from the rose bush.
Yes, exactly. Well, you don't really want them to develop hips yet, because they stay blooming as long as you keep trimming off your spent blooms. But in the fall, starting in October, go ahead and let those spent blooms stay on the plant and mature, and then you'll get your rose hips, and they'll turn a nice orange and red color, and that's when you harvest them.
October for California, for the warmer parts of California. For other parts of the country, though, when should you stop pruning back your roses to let the hips develop?
About the same time, about October.
Okay.
Yeah, because the hips will be ready in about 4 weeks. So in November, that'd be fine.
There you go. Roses. It's part of your daily diet now. Master Rosarian, garden writer. She is the author of the Sacramento Digs Gardening blog, an excellent garden resource for us here locally. If you live someplace else, check it out. There's a lot of good information in there. Debbie Arrington, thanks for eating roses for us.
You're welcome. Thank you.